From KAMR Local 4 News, your local election headquarters, this is Politics Today.
Amarillo will welcome a new police chief who will introduce you to who that is and why he was chosen. And we'll hear about the new organization, the Lone Star 11, why they formed and what they hope to accomplish in relation to the state's largest wildfire. After months of searching, interviews, and talks with the community and more, Amarillo Police will soon welcome a new police chief. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Mari Farrell. The City of Amarillo announced Thomas Hover has accepted a conditional offer to be Amarillo Police Department's next chief of police. The announcement comes after a months-long comprehensive recruitment and search process.
After months of public input, staff feedback, and multiple interview panels, Thomas Hover is set to be Amarillo's next chief of police.
Really came down to his background. He's currently over patrol and special operations. He has a lot of experience with real-time crime centers. He's dealt a lot with the homeless challenges in Irving. He's also done a lot with just advancing new technology and new initiatives in the department, which is a lot of what we have going on now.
Hover has 25 years of experience and is currently the assistant chief for Irving Police Department. At the Meet the Finalist event, Hover shared if selected, he's been the first 100 days listening.
Not just within the organization itself, but also the other directors and community members, right? I think over time, I can build a good 3 to 5 year plan, but that's going to take a couple months to get that done. But the biggest part, what I want to do is not come in with any preconceived notions or ideas. The idea is to understand and listen.
After it was announced that Hover will be the next chief, he expressed his gratitude and shared he was humbled to have this opportunity and ready to serve Amarillo, saying in part, quote, "I am excited to work alongside the dedicated men and women of the Amarillo Police Department and to build upon the strong foundation that defines this outstanding organization." Freeman shared it was a tough decision, but Hover's humbleness, thought process, and plan to listen first is what made him stand out.
I think that'll go well with our team at the department, that they know that they're going to have a voice in major changes.
Hover's conditional offer is contingent upon successful completion of a background check and confirmation by council at the January 13th meeting, with a potential start date 1 to 2 weeks later. In a statement, Mayor Cole Stanley expressed Hover has the support of the public and department, and it is set up for success. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued an electric company which he says caused Texas's biggest wildfire. Paxton filed a suit against Southwestern Public Service Company, which operates in Texas as Xcel. Paxton says the lawsuit is to recover economic damages suffered by the state. His office also wrote this would require them to take corrective action so it doesn't happen again. Xcel responded writing in part, though Xcel Energy disputes claims that it acted negligently in maintaining and operating its infrastructure, we accepted responsibility from the beginning. They also note they've settled 212 out of 254 claims made against the company. To see the lawsuit, Xcel's full statement, and our coverage on this wildfire, as well as our interview with the next police chief, head on over to our website, myhighplains.com. After 2 years after the Smokehouse Creek fire here in the Texas Panhandle, cities from the Panhandle have come together to form the Lone Star 11. The coalition's officials say they formed in response to Xcel's alleged ongoing negligence nearly 2 years after the Smokehouse Creek fire. Politics Today's Maya Clark has details.
An ongoing battle between cities in the Texas Panhandle and Xcel Energy.
If we do this another 20 years like the last 20, the real concern is that we won't be able to get fire insurance on homes out here. If you can't get insurance, you can't get a mortgage on a home. And so it just really would make it difficult for really our communities to even exist if we're going to have fires like this. And so we want safety. That's it.
Abraham says over the past few months, the cities voted to join the coalition. The Lone Star 11 includes Borger, Canadian, Fritch, Higgins, Miami, McLean, Pampa, Perryton, Skellytown, Stinnett, and Wheeler. Abraham shared it's known to be windy in these places, but it's become deadly.
But we haven't had rotten poles. And so that's the real problem, is you just see that, year by year, without the maintenance that was needed, we've just gotten in a bad spot where we've got a real problem.
Lone Star 11 officials say they want accountability, safety, and reimbursement for the fire, and not at the cost of themselves or their neighbors paying more.
It doesn't make sense to, let me let me burn up your house, and the money I paid you for the house, I'm just going to add to your electric bill.
Beyond the financial reimbursement and ongoing safety conversations, Abraham says the Lone Star 11 understands they have to stand up for themselves, largely due to the ongoing emotional toll this puts on the community.
Go out and you have to, they call it where we're dispatching wounded cattle. I mean, that's a bad job. It's like not putting down just one of your favorite pets, but try doing it with 50 or 100. And it's sad. So, yeah, you want to see a cowboy cry, do that to him.
Following the coalition's announcement, XO released the following, saying in part, quote, "We have continued to work in our communities to upgrade infrastructure and carry out our wildfire mitigation program, including the installation of artificial intelligence-based wildfire detection cameras. We consulted closely with our stakeholders, including these very cities, as we finalized a nearly $500 million investment in the electric grid by filing our Texas System Resiliency Plan with the Public Utility Commission." In a statement, Pampa Mayor Mike Borger shared the following, saying, "Joining the Lone Star 11 does not determine any specific direction for the city. It simply gives Pampa a seat at the table. We want to ensure our voice is heard as important discussions take place around the future of electric utility service in our region. Being part of this group allows us to stay informed, explore options, and protect the long-term interests of our community." Plans are still taking shape for a possible change at the Amarillo Zoo. Politics Today's Blas Guerrero has more details on what changes will happen if the plan moves forward. He joins us in studio.
Wild West Wildlife Center says conversations about the future of the Amarillo Zoo are continuing weeks after a proposal was presented to the Amarillo City Council in November. While the plans still are under review, the organization says it has already begun training alongside current zoo staff. Founder and Executive Director Stephanie Brady says the proposal will keep the Wild West Wildlife and the zoo operating as two separate nonprofits, allowing each to focus on its own mission. She says the goal is to maintain stability for the zoo while planning for long-term improvements, essentially when it comes to animal care and operations.
I'll say the training has been great, and the curator, Berkeley, has been wonderful and very gracious to, inform on all the different procedures and everything that go on there. And the zookeepers there have been great at just accepting us in and throwing us in, to make sure that we're cleaning and seeing the day-to-day procedures and things that are going on.
Brady says that the organization has interviewed some current zoo employees with hopes of retaining staff if the transition is approved. Now, if approved, Brady says the changes in operation could begin in early February. In the studio, Blas Guerrero, KMO Local 4 News.
Again, nothing has been approved yet. The proposal is expected to go back before City Council next month for a possible vote. Pantex hits a milestone. Details on the project they've been working on for a while and how they were honored for their work this past week. Federal officials and local leaders gathered this past week to celebrate the completion of the final unit in a long-running nuclear modernization program. Politics Today's Blas Guerrero has more details on what this achievement means.
The Pantex plant has completed the last production unit of the W-88 Alteration 370 nuclear warhead, wrapping up a modernization effort that began more than a decade ago. The final unit was completed last month following years of engineering, testing, and production work. Officials say the project required coordination across the nation's nuclear security enterprise, including multiple national laboratories and production sites, while meeting strict safety, security, and quality standards. Leaders say completing the program was on schedule was especially significant given the complexity of the system and the scale of the work involved.
The program is really delivered, on time and on schedule, which is a tremendous accomplishment. It's a tremendous message to our friends that rely on America's nuclear umbrella that we're serious about strategic deterrence.
The W-88 is a submarine-launched ballistic missile warhead that has been part of the U.S. stockpile since the late 1980s. The program updated key components of the refreshed controversial high explosives to improve safety and support future life extension options. Officials say completing the final unit helps ensure the nation's nuclear defense remains safe, secure, and reliable. In the studio, Blas Guerrero, KMO Local 4 News.
Federal leaders say the completion of the W-88 Alteration 370 highlights the role Pantex continues to play in national security. TxDOT officials have released some updates on their safety projects along I-27 and State Loop 335. Keep this in mind. Crews are working to improve the safety of the interstate as well as the loop. They ask that everyone is aware of these projects while traveling for their holiday plans. On I-27, crews are working to upgrade to 6 lanes between Amarillo and Canyon. They are also currently working on drainage improvements after demolishing the US 60 Direct Connect Bridge. They hope to finish this project by the end of 2028. Crews are also installing a left turn lane on State Loop 335 from Eastern Street to Farmers Avenue. Crews estimate the project to be done in the summer of 2026. They're also working on upgrading State Loop 335 into a 4-lane divided segment from Southwest 9th Avenue to Western Street. They expect this project to be done by the spring of next year. On Soncy Road, they are installing turn lanes and signals on State Loop 335 to US 60 in Canyon. They expect that project to be done by early 2027. Crews are also working on safety improvements on Business I-40 from Hope Road to Southwest 9th Avenue. This is expected to be done by the end of next year. The fight on Capitol Hill regarding health care continues. We'll hear from Texas Senator John Cornyn about that and other topics. A lot is going on Capitol Hill ahead of the lawmakers going home for the holiday break. The fight over healthcare subsidies ending continues, and a defense bill was passed and signed. Here's our D.C. correspondent, Kristen Scow, with Senator John Cornyn on some of these topics.
The Neither health care bill passed the Senate, and we saw the House GOP pass a health care plan, but that doesn't appear like it would pass in the Senate. And at this point, lawmakers will be leaving with no health care deal passed. How concerned are you about these subsidies ending without any replacement?
Well, I'm very concerned that people are being gouged by an 18% increase in the insurance premiums under the Affordable Care Act. The truth is the Affordable Care Act has been a failure and was sold under false pretenses. Now, that doesn't change the fact that we are responsible now for trying to fix it, even though no Republican voted for it. It's our responsibility now. And so my hope is now that the competing provisions failed in the Senate and the House has passed a bill that we can get serious about it. But it's going to take bipartisan cooperation. What I'm concerned about is that the Democrats seem to want the issue to run on in the midterm elections more than they want to solve the problem. But I think it's our responsibility to try to solve the problem and to make sure that people have affordable access to health care.
Stand here. And, given that, what realistically do you think can get done in the new year? And can there be something passed, do you think?
Yeah, hope springs eternal, but it takes will. It takes a willingness to negotiate. Nobody gets 100% of everything they want around here, but we have a real problem because Obamacare has been a failure. We can't sustain 18% increases in premium costs year after year after year, and while the insurance companies continue to get rich. So I think President Trump's got the right idea that let's send money to the consumer rather than to the insurance company directly, because they take about 20% off the top for profit and administrative costs. And why not make sure 100% of that can go to the consumer so they can buy the coverage that suits their need the most at a price they can afford. Unfortunately, Obamacare largely destroyed the private insurance market, where there were a number of different options available to consumers that depending on what their needs were. But we need to work on that when we return in January, and hopefully we can, the politics won't trump common sense and a desire to solve the problem for our constituents.
The subsidies are all going to expire, while Discharge's petition has enough signatures to advance a plan to extend them through 2028. That will likely pass the House and head to the Senate, where people are unsure of what will happen. Lawmakers are also fighting a January 30th government funding deadline. We'll hear from Senator Cornyn after this. The National Defense Authorization Act was passed and signed into law this past week. In it, a pay increase for military members, aid to Ukraine, and restrictions on U.S. investment in China. Here's our D.C. correspondent Kristen Scow with Senator Cornyn on this and other topics.
Let's also talk about the NDAA, which passed in Congress this week. Some people are talking about this carve-out that allows military jets to avoid using GPS technology, and there's concern that this could lead to a repeat of what we saw at Reagan Airport. Are you concerned about that carve-out, and do you think that should be repealed?
Well, I think we fixed that problem. Senator Cruz and Senator Cantwell worked yesterday to pass a bill that I think codifies a memorandum of understanding to provide for the use of transponders or notice to civil aircraft of the presence of U.S. government helicopters and others carrying VIPs and even the President of the United States. So I think that problem's been resolved yesterday through a unanimous consent. So hopefully that will take care of the problem.
And how will Texans feel the impact of the new NDAA?
Well, 1 out of every 10 person in the uniform calls Texas home, so we contribute a lot to our national security, but it's all about the people, and we need to make sure that our men and women who wear the uniform are paid appropriately so they get a pay raise, and also that we're taking care of the families, because it's important to support our military families. We have an all-volunteer military, and so we need to encourage people to stay in once they are in. But we also then need to make sure they're trained and properly equipped. And we know that the world is not getting to be safer. It's more dangerous all the time, and we have threats both in Asia and in Europe to world peace. And the best policy we can embrace is one of peace through strength, as Ronald Reagan said. President Trump has said that's his policy as well, but that's why the NDAA is so important.
And I also wanted to ask you about U.S.-Mexico water. Mexico has so far met about half its obligations for water this cycle. How can we resolve this dispute, the dispute over this 4-year cycle? And President Sheinbaum says Mexico is seeing extreme drought this cycle. Do you believe her?
Well, they may have experienced extreme drought, but so have South Texans. And we have a water treaty that goes back to 1944 that requires distribution of water to the United States for the benefit of our farmers and ranchers in the Rio Grande Valley. And Mexico has not lived up to its responsibilities. We have another opportunity to deal with this when we review the U.S., Canada, Mexico trade agreement in January. This is coming up for a periodic review, and I believe that we ought to look at whether additional tariffs ought to be imposed or other sanctions imposed against the Mexican government until they live up to their responsibilities.
The NDAA was more than 3,000 pages in length. Congressman Ronny Jackson celebrated many parts of the bill, but especially speeding up the delivery of the MV-75 future long-range assault aircraft and improving some operations at Pantex. We'll wrap up politics today after this. Welcome back from break, everyone. What we're fixing to talk about, it's an important project, a project close to our hearts and also to those in our community. And now a memorial to honor area first responders will break ground. Let's talk about what happened. Earlier this week, a special donation by the Downtown Athletic Club and the Hodge family provided the rest of the funding to begin construction. Margaret Hodge and the Downtown Athletic Club provided a lead gift of $100,000 to the memorial. This makes the Downtown Athletic Club and Margaret and Jerry Hodge the largest donors to the organization. The memorial now plans on breaking ground at the start of next year. You can read more about the journey this organization has gone through to raise the money they need on our website, myhighplains.com. We have continuing coverage on myhighplains.com, like I was saying, plus also go ahead and check us out on Alexa, Instagram, and like us on Facebook. We hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday with your friends and family. We will see you back here after the holidays.